You've been in many roles in the sport. I'm sure you've judged, you've lifted, you've coached, you've been running Boss of Bosses for how many years now?
This will be 5 this year.
5 years. Why did you decide to start running meets?
I think it's always something I wanted to do. Before I owned a gym, I was a personal trainer, and when I got hired to be a personal trainer, I told the lady, what do you see me doing in 5 years? Well, I told her at some point I'm going to own a gym, so it might mean I'm not working for you. But that was always something I knew, and once I started competing and been to competitions, it's like my mind always thinks like, how could I make something really great? Because I always like to have, I experience a lot. I get to travel. Yeah. But before I was anybody, I always traveled to do the meets, and I've always gotten to see how meets are run in different places. So I've seen sort of, regional meets, seen national meets. I've been to meets in Russia, Australia, multiple times each. And when I see how meets are run, what I always do is I take, what are the really great things that certain meets do? And then what are the things that you hate about certain things in other meets that they do? And in my mind, it's sort of like this engineering thing that I just can't help but thinking about is like, well, if I put a meet together, put all these good things together, make sure not to do any of these bad things, and then I would add my own personal touch of like what I think would be really cool. What I think would be cool for the sport or what I think athletes would like. And when we opened our business, one of the things I looked at when we were looking at our gym is like, what kind of layout could we have? Could the gym not just be a place to work out, but could it be a place to have competitions too? Mm-hmm. So I think from the very start, I always thought about that. But like I said, traveling and seeing how different meets get run, that's really what's been so helpful for me to kind of say, how should we put on meets that are really meaningful and that people would actually like?
I think the key word there is meaningful, because Boss of Bosses has become kind of there's very few meets that I would say are branded meets. That meets that you hear the name of it, that's a good meet, that's where you want to go. And that's what you've been able to do with the Boss of Bosses in actually a pretty relative short period of time, considering, some meet directors have been trying to do this for 10 years, and they still have clusterfuck of meets and, everything else that goes with that. So I think part of what you've done with that is exactly what you were talking about, taking the best that you've seen from all these other meets, and maybe not being able to implement everything on the first meet, but each year, each iteration, you bring in, another one of those things that you saw from the other meets. With the next one that's coming up, is there anything that new that you're bringing into that you didn't have in the meets prior to?
Honestly, I'd say one of my favorite things that we started doing is when we started putting, the meets on live stream. Obviously, we weren't the first people to do it, but I had this thought, like when you watch sports, like you always see these like updates of scores and information about stuff. And when you watch most powerlifting live streams, it's like there's a camera, it's pointing at the stage, and that's about it, right? So a lot of times you have no idea what's going on. You don't know who has like what kind of subtotals, and so it's like how could you really get? I'm a big fan of baseball. And baseball is only interesting if you kind of know before the play starts, like what's at stake. And so if you're watching a meet and it's just like, okay, this guy's about to come up and lift. It can be impressive or it could not be impressive, but if you don't know how he stacks up against the competition, then that kind of is something that's lacking. So I thought it was really cool. We were able to get some very smart people that go to our gym who could take the ideas that I have and say, hey, I want to make some like overlays on the screen so people can get good information during the meet. And they got excited to do it because that's what they do. They're tech wizards, and so they wanted to help out. So that was one of my favorite things. We could start putting information on the meets and make the live stream actually, kind of update the fans that are, wanting to watch. I think another thing that I liked was just being able to, one thing I always say is like a lot of the problems that a lot of meet promoters have done, I think is starting to get better, is they look at it like if we're going to make the meet make money, we have to cut costs, not improve. Most businesses invest money to make things better so that the product is better, and then they sell it, and they account for their costs with the right price. So we do kind of that same thing. It's like, to me, it's like if you want to put together a really good meet, you have to think what's a commodity and then what's like proprietary. And what I mean by that is like, what is it about one meet that makes somebody want to watch it versus another meet? And to me, it's like the best lifters is what it is. You know, everyone who's a lifter, you know, it's like your friends and your family might want to watch you, but if you want to see all the best lifters in one place, well, that's the unique thing about a good meet. And what makes them want to be there is the prestige of either competing or winning against other good lifters in a competition that's meaningful. And so to me, it's like we want to invest in that. So like, how can we like get the lifters to want to come to the meet, to help them come to the meet, to you know reward them for lifting at the meet, you know, and that's been something that's really cool to kind of do as well. You know, is it through like giving them cash? Is it through prize money? Is it through promotion, or simply having a reputation of having really great meets year in, year out? Yeah. You look back at some of the records that people have set, some of the head-to-head like competitions that we've had at the meets, and that creates this like sort of legacy for the meet where people say, I want to go and win on that stage, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the people who are really competitive, they want to do that because they say, well, if I set a record at my local meet, that's great, but if I set a record and I beat the other person who wants to set the record and I do it at this meet when everything's at stake, that's like much, much more of a meaningful kind of thing to do. So I don't think there's anything that we're going to do this year that's going to be new in that sense. But when we have it, I mean, I think what we do is we try to refine the process and keep getting, you know, the best lifting to take place and take care of the lifters as well as we can. And I think it's just making the product better, where it's like people would much rather go to a meet and know that when they go, they're gonna have a great time. The meet's gonna be run well, and you know, when they watch the really good lifters, you know, like that's kind of the special part for Boss of Bosses.
Well, lifters put a lot of time into the meet, preparing for the meet. You know, they don't really want to go to a meet and run into a bunch of unknowns. Yeah. You know, they want to be able to go there and know, you know, the equipment's set, you know, the flights are going to be run right. You know, all the things that are supposed to be taken care of are taken care of. And as a lifter, you know, and I've spent years learning this, you can never assume everything's going to be taken care of. Where if you're creating this meet where they don't have to worry about that. The only thing they need to worry about is, did they bring their Gatorade? Yeah. You know, or hell, you may even have that taken care of. But they only have to worry about getting themselves ready. Everything else is set. You know, and that's, unfortunately, it's getting better, as you said, but that's still rare, you know, in the sport.
Yeah, you can never make everything perfect, but you know, we try to get, you know, for the WRPF, we get judges who have been judges at high levels in other federations. So when we, you know, the last thing I would want is someone hits a lift, their friend tells someone else, hey, so-and-so just set this record, and their first question is, you know, did they squat low enough? Or I bet they didn't do this, you know, and it's like, so when you can have you know, the sense first to think, wow, this person set a record at this meet, then you don't, your first instinct is not to question it, but your first instinct is to say, wow, that must have been awesome to see. And yeah, that's kind of what I hope for. You know, like, nothing's ever perfect, but at the same token, if you went to the meet to watch the meet and you say, you know, I didn't know the meet was going to be run so well, or like, you know, the stage was going to look great, or, you know, whatever it is that is something that's kind of surprising for that person. I mean, that's really what we want, is that the expectations are exceeded, and then what people sort of assume about the meet is all good, and it's not like there's always like a question of like what's getting done at the meet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.